Coming up on week 10, college football season. Speaking Sports, Razorback Dave and B Ray coming to you from parts unknown in southern Middle Tennessee. B Ray, welcome back.
Good to be here. Been exciting so far. I think I saw a post this afternoon, 20 teams still alive for the playoff, and it goes into what we've talked about a little bit about the games are meaningful now for 20 teams as opposed to 5 or 6 teams.
I just think it makes it more fun.
I do too.
You know, I mean, you got what you got, but all these other teams that are still in it, and like you say, 20 teams. What are the 20? Do you know? I mean, if you go top 20, I mean, you're talking about teams like SMU and Boise State, Pittsburgh, Kansas State, Indiana.
Indiana's in the top 10 this week. They're 8-0.
Yeah, you know, and
and you look at Indiana's schedule. Now they've beaten Nebraska, Maryland, UCLA, Washington this weekend. And they've got left Michigan State. That's a winnable game. Michigan at home, that's a winnable game. Ohio State and Columbus, you know, probably going to be a big underdog in that one. Then they close at home against Purdue. Indiana's going to probably win 10 games at least, maybe 11.
Well, look at the top 10 just SEC teams. One or more of those teams is going to lose another game because Georgia's going to play Tennessee. I'm not sure what A&M's got.
Texas.
They got Texas, South Carolina, and Auburn. Well, and they got New Mexico State, but that shouldn't be a thing for them. But they're going to have to play Texas. So, I mean, you talk about the SEC teams in the top 10, Georgia, Texas, Tennessee, and Texas A&M. And I think it's ironic that A&M's leading the conference, and they are the lowest ranked team in the top 10 from the SEC.
And they don't play anybody above them except Texas.
Yeah.
That's the last game of the year.
Well, and then let's say they get a win over Texas at number 6. Where does that even put them? They're saying that loss to Notre Dame that's only hitching their get along right now, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, Indiana has played – their schedule's as tough as Notre Dame's or BYU's been, and they're in the Big Ten.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you something else. Texas got to go to Florida. Actually, Florida's coming to Austin, but still, Florida ain't going to lay down for them.
I mean, they still got players.
Of course
Florida
they do.
still has player.
And then you look at the Big 12, and, you know, there's Iowa State's still undefeated. BYU still undefeated. You got Penn State in the Big 10 that's still undefeated. And what's Miami? ACC or Big East? ACC?
Miami's ACC. Correct.
So Miami's still in there undefeated there, but they're sitting at number 5. I mean, they're giving here's what I guess what I don't get. Oregon's undefeated number 1. I'm not going to argue with you about that. But why are the other big name undefeated teams not up there? I mean, how many years have they put Miami in there hoping they'd be good and they just stink? And now they're sitting here undefeated and they won't put them up there. And you remember how they rogered Florida State last year, undefeated and don't make the playoff. Is it a bias against the ACC?
Well, not anymore because the ACC is the winner's in.
Yeah.
So if Miami wins out, they're in. They're going to be in a top 4 seed.
So the conference champion gets the top 4 seeds.
That's right.
Okay.
The ACC champ, SEC champ, Big 10 champ, and Big 12 champ all get a first round bye.
I got
it doesn't matter where they're ranked or what their record is.
All right.
They get a bye. So all of this, honestly, if you win your conference, none of this really matters. I think where it gets interesting is, Georgia, Texas, Tennessee, Texas A&M can't all win the league.
Yeah.
Okay, and so at that point, somebody's going to have 2 losses. Ole Miss has got to play, I think, at Arkansas this week, which 3 weeks ago looked like, Ole Miss will probably be a big-time favorite. And now that doesn't look like such as a gimme anymore.
Yeah.
And you got Pitt. Pitt and Miami are going to play it out. Clemson, Pitt, Miami, that should shake itself out. I don't know the schedules, but I think the SEC is going to be challenged to get those 4 teams in, because I think you're going to have a lot of teams that are 10-2 with 2 losses.
Well, but then let me throw this caveat at you. Let's say A&M loses, but doesn't lose until the SEC championship game. They'll have 2 losses, but only one of them is a conference loss at that point.
They're in. Yeah, no, they're going to be in. If they got 1 loss in the SEC and that's in the championship game, they're in, because they'll be they won't get the bye, obviously,
right,
because whoever
the winner of the game will get the bye.
I think they would be in 100%. They would be in.
And then you look at number 11 in the AP poll, they've got Iowa State and Clemson tied. Iowa State's undefeated, and Clemson. I mean, let's look at their body of work.
I mean, if
they lost to Georgia. And now, but they beat Appalachian State, North Carolina State, Stanford, Florida State, Wake Forest, and Virginia. But they weren't being tied with an undefeated team in the top 12.
Yeah, it's mind bending, because everybody's schedule looks like that.
Yeah.
Who I know Penn State plays Ohio State this week. Who do they have left? If you can pull that up.
Yeah, Penn State is going to have Ohio State this weekend. Then they still have Washington. They're at Purdue, at Minnesota, and then they finish up with Maryland after Thanksgiving.
So they're probably going to be, if they lose this week, 11-1.
Yeah,
they're in. They're going to be in.
Well, they should be in. And
they're probably, in Ohio State.
Does the Big Ten have a championship game?
Yep. Oh,
now, they could lose. If they lose today and they lose in the championship game, are they in?
Oh, yeah, they're in. If they get to if you make it to the championship game in those big conferences, I think you're in.
Even if you got 2 losses? If you got 2 losses going to the championship game and you lose in the championship game?
If you have 3 losses.
Because there's this, look, I haven't sat here and played all the scenarios out, but I think if we looked at the remaining schedules of the 4 teams in the SEC, you could probably come up with a scenario where a 2-loss team goes to the championship game and loses.
Correct. And I think if it's like Tennessee, if Tennessee made to the championship game and had 2 losses and lost and had 3 losses, I don't think they'd get in.
Yeah.
Because I think they're going to have 3 losses. I don't think they would make it anyway. I think they're going to end up with 3 losses anyway.
Okay, you know what? But let me take it a step further. If they have 2 losses and they're in the championship game, that means they beat 2 of these other teams. They either they come out ahead of Texas or Texas A&M to make it to the championship game. If Georgia gets there, see, A&M's the only undefeated team in the conference right now. In conference play,
right,
they're the only team unscathed. If they went out, they're in, which leaves 3 teams with one conference loss right now. But
right,
they could all 3 have 2 losses by then. Then you're going to tiebreakers just to see who goes to the championship game.
And then the committee.
Oh,
I guess
there's a committee.
I think they choose.
Oh, okay.
Right? Because you think about Tennessee's got Kentucky and Knoxville. They should win that one. They should beat Mississippi State in Knoxville. They're going to lose at Georgia. They're going to beat UTEP. And then they got Vandy and Nashville. I mean, that's not a give me anymore. We talked a little bit about this last week. They'll have 2 losses going into that Vanderbilt game. And that's not going to be a gimme. I mean, Vandy gave Texas all they wanted. I don't think Vanderbilt has ever had as many people pulling for them last weekend against Texas at any point in their history to win a game.
Hey, I was poised. I was coming to get you.
I mean, I told somebody I was going down and throw the goalpost in the damn river.
Oh, heck yeah. I was going to get my picture made on Broadway for sure.
With a month to go, there's a lot to be decided.
Well, and let's see what the football games look like. Ohio State and Penn State, like you said before. Miami has Duke. Ole Miss has got to go to Fayetteville to play Arkansas. Army's going to host Air Force. That ought to be a good game, although Air Force is 1-6. And then Minnesota and Illinois will play. that Michigan-Oregon game might be a trap game for Oregon. I mean, you never really know.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Anything can happen.
Yeah.
When you go on the road, anything can happen in college football, as everybody has seen. And so you got to play them out every week. There's going to be a lot of the top four are going to be easy. That next, or the top four plus the group of five representative. Those five are easy, but that next seven,
yeah,
you're going to have you're going to have one-loss teams. You're going to have two-loss teams. There's going to be 2 or 3-loss teams that people think are better than one-loss teams.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be interesting.
Well, Indiana's got to go to Michigan State this weekend. That could be a trap. Michigan State's 4-4, 2-3 in league play.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, there's still a little bit of prestige. If you're playing for Indiana, even if you're sitting there undefeated, you're in your back of your mind, you're like, oh crap, we got to go play Michigan State.
100%. Michigan State's got good football tradition. They got good players.
Yeah.
Their facilities, their stuff. I mean, they're as good as anybody.
I'll tell you another that's going to be drawn up this weekend is that bunch in Knoxville. Sitting at number 7, got Kentucky coming to town. Anything can happen to that. Don't they play for the Little Brown Jug in that game?
I don't know what they play for.
I think
maybe the Bourbon Barrel. Is that it? The Whiskey Barrel or something like that?
Could be. Well, maybe I just nicknamed it the Little Brown Jug.
Yeah, the Kentucky's just all over the place. And, I mean, who knows who's going to show up. I think they probably handle Kentucky. Their 2 road games, Georgia and Vanderbilt, that's going to give that. Those are the problems for them because historically, Heupel has not been very good on the road.
Yeah.
They're just not good on the road under him.
Here's a game Saturday night that could have playoff implications. Number 18 Pittsburgh playing number 20 SMU. That's a loser league town match, probably.
Pretty much. Pitt would have to, kind of win out because they started out so low, which is your knock on the whole system as teams can't play. It's hard for Georgia or Texas to play their way out of it. They can lose 2 games and they're still not out of it.
And it's harder for Pittsburgh to play their way in it.
That's right. It's exactly right. Because all those teams do is they all just shuffle between 1 and about 12.
I've thought this for years, that they should not release a poll until 5 weeks into the season. Let's just see who's good.
Right. I agree.
I mean, and we only do it to give people something to talk about, but I think you should just wait till the 10 games in and see who the best teams are.
And I wouldn't even necessarily have a problem. Like, here's our preseason poll.
Yeah.
And then we're going to compare
But it's that preseason poll, that preseason poll looks the same every year. You know what? And I would do this kind of every year. Let's do it right now. Let's just for kids.
Look at
let's go.
1985 preseason college football.
Okay, but we want to be week preseason. Not what year?
1985. Just throw 1985 out there.
It's only going to let me go back to 2002.
Okay.
So I'm going to do that. All right. Here we go. Miami, Oklahoma, Florida State, Texas, Tennessee, Florida, Colorado, Georgia, Nebraska, Washington. Let's just do the top 10. In the other poll, it's Miami, Texas, Oklahoma, Florida State, Tennessee, Colorado, Florida, Nebraska, Washington, Michigan. All right. Let's go 2003. 2003. Doesn't look like the AP had a preseason poll, or they only had Alabama in it. Oklahoma, Ohio State, Miami, Texas. Miami and Texas are the 2 that are always in there, and they ain't been worth a damn since the 60s. Oklahoma, Ohio State, Miami, Texas, Kansas State, Auburn, Michigan, USC. Oh, there's another one. USC's always in there. Georgia, Virginia Tech. That's the top 10. I tell you what, we'll just stay in the coaches' poll since the AP didn't bother that year. All right, so now we're 2004. USC, Oklahoma, LSU, Georgia, Miami, Florida State, Michigan, Texas, Ohio State, Florida. Same, at least 5 common teams, poll to poll. But it's the same 15, 20 teams, no matter what.
Well, think about this. If Texas started out, or any of those teams, Oklahoma, Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, if any of those teams started outside the top 25, and they were 8-0, they would all be ranked higher than Pittsburgh and Indiana is now.
That's true. And I think
they would all be higher.
I think that's our point. All right, we're going to take a quick break, pay a bill. You're Speaking Sports. We're having a ball. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Every championship, every game, every rep, every workout takes its toll on the body. Get ready for the next one. KRT Athletic Muscle Cream, proud partner of the Big 12 Athletic Conference. Welcome back. B Ray and Razorback Dave. We're going to have CV McCoy on in the next segment to talk a little basketball. And then B Ray and I'll be back to finish it up. B Ray, I don't know much about basketball.
Yeah, it's if you think football is hard to keep up with now, basketball has been hard to keep up with for the last 25 years with the one and done and all of that. But what I can promise you is that wherever you go, people are going to be talking about Duke, Kansas, Michigan State.
Yeah.
That's who you're going to be hearing about. Gonzaga, North Carolina.
Well,
so
I used to try to live and die as a Razorback Dave. I lived and died with the football team, lived and died with the basketball team, lived and died with the baseball team, marginally interested in softball, and love to hear about track and field, but I've never sat down and watched it except maybe in highlights. And then the emotional toll that it takes on my body, I've kind of had to drop them all. I watch them all when they win. YouTube's my friend right now because I can not watch the game live. Go to YouTube. If we win and see all the highlights, it takes about 15 minutes.
Right.
And I don't have to suffer the loss. I just don't like suffering the losses anymore.
Right.
You know, and I've got, I don't like suffering the football losses either, but I do. I will live and die with the football team and then, maybe get with, and I wonder, everybody's got their favorite sports. Do you do that? Do you have a team? I've never heard you talk about a team that you follow. But if you did, do you follow every sport or you just follow one sport and mildly interested in the rest of them?
I think I would be kind of considered more a generic fan, and I do follow a lot of SEC stuff. I always have, growing up around the Memphis area, and my dad being a SEC fan pretty much. I was an SEC fan, and not anything really that I live and die by. I went to a group of 5 school, and so that is kind of what it is. That beast is what it is. But I do, and I was a college athlete, so I do follow the program a lot, and I will catch myself. I wouldn't go in there and Google and check and see how the various teams did. Mostly the baseball team because I was on the baseball team, and football because I like football. And this year I'll probably be a little bit more mildly interested in basketball because the basketball team is supposed to be really good this year, and so. But I think I'm more of a generic fan, and I will watch SEC basketball games during the week if there's a good matchup on that I'm mildly interested in watching. Like the other night, I watched a few minutes of Arkansas was playing Kansas. I can't figure out if that was a real game or not a real game, but I watched a few minutes of that, and Calipari's going to make it interesting now that he's being over there. So I'll probably watch a lot of their games because Calipari is one of the guys. He just gets eyes on the set, and I'm kind of one of those folks. So, but generically, I kind of just keep up with what's happening with the SEC and all.
You follow your alma mater pretty good though, and you played at Arkansas State.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. I'll follow them, and I'll kind of make sure. I'll see kind of.
Do you live and die with them though? I mean, do you get gut wrenched when they lose or throw stuff, break a TV?
A lot of that is. I'm all about. I'm just not a fan of mediocrity, and I think mediocrity is a culture at companies, and on athletic programs, anywhere you go. And sometimes I wish I could hear, instead of somebody saying we can't do this, and I want somebody to tell me why we can't.
Yeah.
The short answer is always, well, we don't have enough money. We don't have this, or we don't have that. And I think that's just a cop out. I really do. And I know it takes a lot of money to do things. And, but at the end of the day, are they making the right decisions and coming up with a long-term plan to be viable, instead of just, oh, hey, we're happy with 6 or 7 football wins every year. We got to go play 2 blood money games against a Big Ten team and get beat 70-0, and we pick up $4 million that pays off, all of the other sports. I think that's a cop out in a lot of ways. I don't agree with the group of 5 schools playing those big schools just for the money. And they all, and everybody can cut it a different way. All gives our kids an experience or whatever, but nobody wants to lose 70-0.
Yeah. I've never been anything but a Razorback fan in college in terms of, really getting into what's happening, recruiting and all that. But from a very early age, though, my dad was a Razorback fan. He, and I followed him from the time. I've got pictures. The earliest picture of me that I've got, I'm probably 3 or 4 with a T-shirt on. It's got a Razorback that got this hog on it going the other way, I think, and a football helmet on the ground. I'm holding a football. I was in. I was in at 4. I was in. And, consequently, my son is in, and he got a chance to go there and graduate from there. So he's an alum. We're going to get a Dunston name in the sidewalk, son.
There you go. There you go.
I can't wait for that. I hope it happens before I die. They're a little bit behind on them chiselings in the sidewalk, I think.
Are they really?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Although I would think with computers now it could go a lot faster. I think they used to hand chisel that stuff.
I think surely now they just dig up the section and just pour
or
the other one in.
Either that or just replace the section. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Just replace the section. That'd be
right.
good. But yeah, but still, even then, I remember in 98 when Sterner fumbled against Tennessee in Knoxville, my dad and I it was raining straight down that game, and we had played lights out the whole game, and Sterner tripped over Brandon Burlesworth's foot, and when he put his hand down to keep himself from falling, he set the ball on the ground, and we lost that game. My dad and I, we didn't speak all the way home from Knoxville back to Nashville to Spring Hill's like a 4.5, 5 hour ride. We rode in the car in total, right after the game, soaking wet, rode in the car back to Nashville in total silence. We went to bed. We woke up the next morning. He came in, and I thought we were going out to eat. He walked right out the front door, and I looked over at my mom. My mom said, well, I guess we're leaving. And she went and got in the car, and they went back to West Memphis, and we didn't talk for 2 months. No, we wasn't mad at each other.
Right.
We were just sick about that game.
I remember.
And to do that for more than one sport, I don't have that kind of energy anymore.
Yeah, it's one of those. Well, it means a lot, but now it's all a corporate deal. You couldn't. It doesn't matter really where it is. Taking your kid to the game now. It costs $10,000 in donations before you buy the ticket, and then you go over there, and if you get a hotel room, it's a $2,000 weekend because you got to get a minimum of 2 nights on a hotel room. And by the time you buy your tickets, go to the game, and all of that stuff,
I tell you,
it's expensive to go.
You don't see the ticket hawkers anymore in the parking lots anymore because of all these trades. We were at Alabama one time. We had 4 tickets, but there was 3 of us, and we had 4 tickets, and it was like a pair of 2 tickets. So we had 2 and 2. And we found a guy that had 3 tickets together, and we were going to give him our 4 tickets and $50 for his 3 tickets. And he could not do the math to think that was a good deal. It just went right over his head, and he didn't sell them to us. He never sold them to us.
Well, you were at Alabama. So.
Oh, yeah, it's absolutely at Alabama. Oh, my gosh. All right, so we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to have CV McCoy on to talk a little bit of basketball, and then B Ray and I'll be back to wrap up the show in just a minute. You're listening to Speaking Sports. We'll be right back. Every championship, every game, every rep, every workout takes its toll on the body. Get ready for the next one. KRT Athletic Muscle Cream, proud partner of the Big 12 Athletic Conference. All right, Razorback Dave back. KRT Athletic Muscle Cream, proud sponsor of the Big 12 Athletic Conference. And we're going to have Andy Whittier on with us next week. We thought we were going to get him this week, but he had a unscheduled workout by one of his coaches came up, and we had to do that. But as promised, I got CV McCoy on with us to talk a little bit of early basketball, which we don't typically do on this show because I know nothing about basketball. But fortunately for me, I know CV. CV McCoy, how's it going?
You got the expert on, Dave.
Well, I think that's because you doesn't living in Kentucky just naturally make you an expert?
You definitely need to know a little bit about basketball if you live in Kentucky. If you want to have any conversations at all at any of the local coffee shops.
But you're not a Blue Mister though, right? You have a different allegiance.
I'm kind of a redheaded stepchild here in Kentucky. I'm a Western Kentucky fan, but I do follow the Kentucky basketball in Louisville and Eastern Murray. We have some really good basketball schools here in Kentucky.
All right, but okay, so Louisville and Kentucky are playing. Who you rooting for?
Before or after Calipari?
Well, Today,
I would, I'm not a hater of either one, but I really like Mark Pope. I used to be a Blue Mister when Pitino was coach at Kentucky. I mean, he's probably one of my all-time favorite coaches just because he demanded respect, the way his teams played defense, and it was just a wide-open offense. Anybody, if you had an open shot, shoot it. And if he would fuss on you if you turned down a wide open 3-point shot. And that's the era where Mark Pope came from. So I caught glimpses of the couple scrimmages and whatnot of the Kentucky basketball, and it just brought back a lot of memories of how they used to play.
How you like that new basketball floor they got in Rupp Arena?
I'm still up in the air about that. I don't know. I didn't know. Someone said that they got a new LED floor, and I saw that, and I said, that's kind of wild.
They don't do anything with it during the game, though, right? It's just like between.
I certainly hope not, but you got to believe probably during some timeouts and stuff, they're going to.
Oh, well, yeah.
Get some money out of the advertisement using that floor.
I guess that's a lot like what they're doing with the stadium lights in the football stadiums right now. Everybody's got those LED lights that don't have to warm up. And that's the thing, till about 4 or 5 years ago, if your lights went out in your stadium, it's 15 minutes before they came back. In fact, I won a little league district championship game one year because we were just sucking. And one of the light poles went out for whatever reason. It gave us a chance. It took about 15 minutes for it to cool off and come back on. We came back out and smoked them. Went on to win the state championship that year, but shoot, it played into our favor for sure.
Yeah, if you wanted to end basketball practice early when I was a kid, you just found the light switch and turned it off. But one time the coach got on to us doing that, and needless to say, we ran a few laps after that.
So I was
turned into track practice instead of basketball.
Oh,
practice.
Yeah, I hate when that happens. Of course, I wasn't much of an athlete. I didn't like to run, so I still don't for that matter. But I was looking at the preseason polls, the top 5: Kansas, Alabama, UConn, Houston, and Iowa State in the AP, and the coaches have Kansas, Alabama, UConn, Houston, and Duke. And I don't know if you were paying any attention, but Kansas came into Fayetteville last week and played what they called an exhibition game, played it to a sold-out Bud Walton Arena crowd. It ended up doing it a little bit different. We'll talk about that in a second. And they did have 2 of their starters out, but Arkansas pretty much had their way with them. They've got a brand new team. Calipari, as you probably already know, took the coaching job at the University of Arkansas, and he pretty much didn't have a team. I mean, literally, everybody went in the portal or graduated or quit. He had one. I think there's one guy on the roster that was on the roster last year. And he's gotten a transfer portal, gotten to the high school gyms, and has put together quite a group of guys. They got him ranked preseason 16 in the AP. Don't appear to be showing him any love in the coaches poll.
What you just said, and that's a total different subject for another podcast but that's just going to be the norm of college basketball and football with the new NIL rules, in my opinion.
Oh yeah.
Calipari is a great recruiter, and he's great at raising money. So now with the NIL, I'm sure, I think Arkansas is up in the top 5 of NIL money in all of college. So he's going to have Calipari probably went from, he was the one and done coach, and that's where everybody wanted to go because the really good players just wanted to come play 1 year and go pro. And he was a master at that. And now sounds like, he's going to master the NIL world for a little while probably as well until everybody else catches up with him. It's a copycat world, Dave.
Of course, everything is, for that matter.
Yeah.
Well, there were some rumors going around that Tyson Foods had given him $5 or $8 million to put towards NIL. That was actually proven not to be true. Now, Tyson did have something to do with putting together his contract to get him paid to come there, but they didn't do anything extra. Now all the universities are still fishing around trying to figure out how to do their NIL. I don't think Arkansas started with one Arkansas, and now I think they have something called Arkansas Edge that are, I want to say consortiums, but I know that's not the right word. They raise money to distribute via NIL, but I'm not sure how they're doing it because I don't think that's how it's supposed to work. Because whoever's given the money should be getting value for that payment, and I'm not sure how that works when you got one group collecting money to disperse it. What do you have them do?
The way I understand NIL, and I'll have to dig into it, and I'm not an NIL expert, but the way I understand it's supposed to work is like you just said, a car dealership wants to pay Razorback Dave, this amount of money to advertise or sport his business, and that's how it's supposed to be. I don't know if you sign contracts. I did see the star wide receiver for Colorado said that it would take $40 million for him to go pro next year. And I thought that was, and that's what we're going to get into. You're going to have kids staying in school because they can make more money in school than they can in the pro.
Well, yeah, because the pros have salary minimums for rookies, and it's tiered by where you get drafted. The first pick of the first round is tiered here. 6th, 7th pick in the first round. $10 million less than that guy, and it graduates all the way down. So yeah, in some cases it is going to be more, unless if I'm the general manager of the Tennessee Titans, I say, okay, I got the first pick. I want Joe Schmo, although we need a quarterback really bad, but that's for another time as well. I don't want Joe Schmo, so can I get Nike to go make them a deal? so that we can get them that money, but we're just not necessarily paying them that money. Every time they make a rule, there's a whole group of folks sitting in another room somewhere trying to figure out how to circumvent it.
Hey, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying.
I think that's the old Dale Earnhardt philosophy for everything.
That's right.
So
we talked a little bit about. I'll talk one little tidbit less about the NIL, and then we're gonna move on. But I told you I was a big Rick Pitino fan, and I heard him in an interview last year that college basketball is different now because in the locker room he's talking to 12, 13 free agents every year.
Yeah, that's why Eric Musselman was so successful. Eric Musselman, who's at USC now, came to Arkansas from Nevada, but went to Nevada from coaching in the G League for the NBA. And that's like a rec league for pro athletes. When you get right down to it, you're going to have a new roster. You could have a new roster every week if somebody gets called up, but you at least get a new roster every year, and you have to try to build and develop. And so he got real good at that. I don't know. I'll tell you what I do know. Here's what I think about when you start bringing what I call high-priced athletes into play for you on the college level. There's only a handful of guys out there that can get those guys' attention. Nick Saban in football was one of them. He didn't really care if you were a 5-star or a 1-star. If you couldn't do it like he wanted it done, you weren't going to play. And if you didn't play, odds are you weren't going to go anywhere beyond that. I saw some in the locker room footage. They beat Kansas by like almost 30 points in this exhibition. Now they played 4 10-minute quarters, which we'll talk. Like I say, we will get to it, I swear. But he had a room full of guys in there. He said, you guys did really well. He let them know. He said they had a couple of their starters out, but still, we didn't make one 3-point shot, and we beat them by almost 30 points. Now, here's my problem. We got out-rebounded. And he said, I'm just going to tell everybody in here, if you're not going to rebound, you're not going to play. Period. And he said, some of you guys are not on the page that I want you to be on for this team. So you guys get to decide. If everybody gets on the same page and does things like I want to do, I'll play the whole roster. But if you don't, I'm only going to play 5 or 6. And he's telling them that after a 30-point win, he's letting everybody know, okay, yeah, we're really good and we can be a lot better, but we are going to do it my way. He's basically telling them what I used to say. I would rather lose my way than tolerate you not doing what I ask you to do because it sets a bad example for everybody else.
Well, the best time to get on to your team about problems is right after a win.
Oh, yeah.
And the worst time, too, is right after a loss.
Well, have you heard Bobby Knight tell that story? Have you heard Bobby Knight tell that story about Michael Jordan in the Olympics?
Yes. Yep.
That's a great story. Look it up. Google Bobby Knight, Michael Jordan. Yeah. It's a great story, but go ahead.
It's a great story. You have their attention more after a win than you do after a loss. Now, in practice the next day, that's when you can address the loss, but not right after.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like a win.
For sure. And you address losses differently. I never knew what to say after a loss. I was so upset that, I was never looking for anybody to blame. I was just already trying to figure out, okay, what do we got to do to fix so that doesn't happen again? So, and I misspoke. Arkansas is listed 16th in the coaches poll as well. So both polls 16. I thought it was a little odd they wouldn't have them in there. But, yes, they are in there. I apologize to the people at the coaches poll, none of which watch this show. So, CV, we were talking about the exhibition season's a little bit – I don't know if it's doing that everywhere, but at Arkansas and Kansas played 4 10-minute quarters. They were even talk about turning it into a scrimmage where they would just – do some situational stuff, and there's even talk where they could play 4 10-minute quarters but reset the scoreboard at the end of each quarter. What's with that? When did that start? Is anybody else doing that?
I think they're all doing. I don't think that they're resetting the score, but there is talk of it. I I don't know if you saw the Duke Arizona State score. Like Duke beat them by like 50.
Oh, wow.
In their exhibition game. Western just had their exhibition game Sunday. They played UAB. Of course, UAB is a really good team. And and Western has a new coach. And so he's still filling everything out. But UAB beat them by 11. So it's just interesting, and then Tennessee is going to play Indiana. Alabama is going to play Memphis. I don't know how I like it, Dave, but they didn't ask my opinion, we'll just enjoy these.
They never asked me anything. I'm looking at the AP Top 25. The only team I see in the entire list. Well, what's going on at Iowa State? I mean, I've never heard them mentioned in a preseason top 5 basketball poll, but they're sitting here at number 5. And same with them in football. In football, they're undefeated right now, and in the top, I think they're sitting 11th. One outside the top 10 and 7-0, 8-0.
I think Iowa State is one of those teams that, because of where they are and because we are where we are, and they're in the Big 12. And, most people around here fall in the SEC and the ACC, and we're not real familiar with the Big 12. But Iowa State, if you'll go back in the history of the NCAA, they're always in it, and they're always, and you can call it an upset if you want, but they're winning some games.
Huh.
And they've got some really good players. I'd have to look at my research, because I'm not, but I'm pretty sure Iowa State went to the Final 8 last year in the NCAA tournament.
Might have been. I have not researched it at all. They're sitting number 5 in the AP, number 6 in the coaches poll, and then one other team that's showing up in the AP, not so much in the coaches, is Rutgers. Never seen Rutgers in a preseason top 25.
I haven't either. That's kind of a surprise for me too. But although they played well last year too, so they must have was able to keep most of their players and get them to come back. And I say that, and people go, "What do you mean?" Well, that's just the way it's going. Back to the NIL. It's the way it's going to be. It's going to be. You're going to see a new team every year, and to keep your good freshmen, everybody else is going to be after them.
Well,
but I think the team, honestly, the team in the top 25, they got Kentucky ranked 23 in the AP. What are they in the coaches?
Same. They're 23.
I think that's the team that's going to surprise a lot of people. I mean, Mark Pope
said, the guy from Kentucky.
The guy that's not a Kentucky fan. Let's
see. Let me see if I can get their schedule to pop up here. Hold on. All right. Yeah. So they are going to play Duke in November. And they're going to play other people. They'll play Western Kentucky in late November. They're going to play Clemson early December. They're going to play Gonzaga. They're going to play Colgate. Going to play Louisville. Going to play Ohio State. And then, of course, the gauntlet that is the SEC, they'll play everybody in the SEC. So that's a pretty brutal preseason schedule to have 1, 2, potentially 3 top 25 teams to play in preseason. So
Kentucky doesn't shy away from the big games. They love the big games. And, I mean, that's why listen, everybody wants to play Kentucky because you've heard of the Big Blue Nation and they travel. It doesn't matter where they're going.
Yeah, they're a good tournament team.
And
I feel the same way about Arkansas after having seen them play. And I'm not one that likes to suffer through basketball. I like to get up the next morning, go to YouTube, find the breakdown of the game. It lasts about 15 minutes, somewhere between 12 and 15 minutes. I see all the highlight plays. I don't have to sit through timeouts and commercials and goo like that. And then the roller coaster that is basketball, I don't enjoy it much. But what I did see the other night, they are going to have to be reckoned with at some point. Their preseason schedule really not quite what I would say is challenging as maybe Kentucky's, but they are going to play Baylor. They are going to play Illinois. They're going to play Miami. They're going to play Michigan. And then they're going to start their SEC schedule, and they'll run that same gauntlet. So, and then let me go back. I'll see what Louisville looks like.
So Louisville the last 2 years were 12 and 52, Dave.
That would explain why they're not in the top 25 preseason.
Listen, I was talking to a Louisville fan the other day, and they were happy because they won their exhibition game.
Yeah.
I mean, Louisville was so bad that they were losing in their exhibition games.
Well, Louisville, goodness gracious, Louisville's going to have to play number 12 Tennessee first week of November, actually second week of November. Then they're going to play Indiana, Ole Miss, Duke, Kentucky, Florida State. They'll play Virginia, Clemson, Pittsburgh, Syracuse. I don't think any of those are cakewalks. And then they'll play Miami, Notre Dame, Florida State again, and Stanford. That's a brutal schedule. That is a brutal schedule. I just wonder, maybe when we come back next week and talk about this, I'll see if I can find the schedule, see what the toughest ranking schedules are. But that's pretty stout.
Well, I mean, when you play in the SEC and you play the ACC, I mean, just your in-conference schedule is going to be stout.
Yeah, that's true.
And when you have Kentucky and Louisville, it's they don't shy away from the big games.
Yeah,
at all.
So all right, so today is October 28th, and who are you picking to win it all?
It's hard for me to pick Kansas ever, although they're ranked number 1 and they'll be there. If I was to pick who's going to win it all, it's just going to be hard for me not to pick UConn.
UConn is coming in at number 3 in both polls to start the season. And I'll look at their
what
schedule.
He's doing there and the money that he was offered to leave there, I think Kentucky offered him $100 million, and he's like, "No, I'm happy." Dave, I love to get to the point in my life to where somebody says, "Hey, here's $100 million, come on over," and I'm like, "Nah, I'm good."
Yeah, that wouldn't be a bad problem to have.
It certainly wouldn't.
All right, that's going to wrap up the basketball portion of the show today. CV McCoy, thank you so much for dropping in. We're going to have him back every week to talk a little basketball, especially when the season gets a little bit closer. November looking like something like that. We'll be back to wrap up the show. B Ray will be back right after these messages from KRT Athletic Muscle Cream. Don't leave home without it. Every championship, every game, every rep, every workout takes its toll on the body. Get ready for the next one. KRT Athletic Muscle Cream, proud partner of the Big 12 Athletic Conference. Welcome back, Speaking Sports. Thanks, CV McCoy, for coming on, talking basketball with us. He's going to be a regular this year to help me out with basketball so we can maybe do the show a little longer. B Ray, I want to give you a chance to weigh in. We were talking about what it was that Arkansas and Kansas was doing in terms of the scrimmage. It was supposed to be an exhibition, and then they said they were just going to do a scrimmage because both coaches wanted to play situations. And then they decided to do, I don't know what they decided to call it, but they played 4 10-minute quarters. Which, I don't know that anybody really cared what they did, but I'd never heard them go that far. And I even had heard some scuttle that they might even reset the scoreboard at the end of each quarter so they could work more situations.
Right. You know, I saw where Memphis had played North Carolina a couple weeks ago in the same type of deal. And I'm going to have to be honest, I kind of liked it. I kind of like, you know, instead of playing, you know, the U.S. All-Star World Tour basketball team, playing a meaningful opponent. And heck, the game the other night looked like the arena was packed.
It was sold out.
Yeah.
They camped out for 3 days to get in there.
Yeah, exactly. Why wouldn't you do that? I think
crazy.
That's actually a pretty good idea.
Yeah, well, and it was very entertaining. Well, it was entertaining because Kansas was missing 3 starters. So
right.
But the coach at Kansas did say after the game, he said, we just play the 3 best point guards in America.
Yeah.
He said they're not a better set of guards in the country than those 3 kids right there. So Arkansas is going to have something. You know, I remember when Musselman got there, he had players that were as good or close to it, and they couldn't win on the road. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But, yeah, I don't know what their regular season starts here pretty soon. I don't know if they have any more exhibitions coming up. But I think what they wrestle with is, okay, if we don't do it somewhat like a game, will people come to watch it? And, you know, I don't know that maybe you don't worry so much about people coming to watch it. I think, you know, you televise it so that anybody that wants to see it sees it, but you get the work done. And maybe you do it as a pay-per-view or something like that. You know, $5 gets you in to watch the whole thing, your whole family. You know, I don't know. I don't know.
Oh, it'll never be $5.
I don't travel up there for basketball. I go to basketball games when I'm in town for something else and I have an opportunity to go. So I've not been to that many games, basketball games. I went to a lot in Barnhill when I was in school up there, but I've only been in a handful of games in Bud Walton.
Well, in the NIL era, there will never be anything that's $5 again. But, I mean, if you had 20,000 people there, $20 a head, $400,000 plus concessions, I mean, it's $500,000 that you can spend on other parts of the program. So,
all right, what's your game to watch this week before we get out of here?
My game to watch this week in football, I'm going to kind of be really interested in. I'm going to watch the Ole Miss Arkansas game because I think that's interesting for a lot of factors. If Ole Miss loses, they're out. The Florida Georgia, you know, it is what it is. And the SEC, Texas A&M, South Carolina, Kentucky, and Tennessee that night. Not anything that's really just making me set my alarm to watch the TV. But
I think that A&M Carolina game's a trap game.
Yeah,
Carolina has been known to rear up on folks when they least expect it.
And Carolina plays good. They'll be at home, and A&M, that's a long trip for them. That may be the longest trip. Well, now that Texas is in the league, it's not the longest, but that's a pretty long trip.
Yeah. Well,
not that matters anymore, but I'm still not sold on A&M. And I know they're winning games, but they just haven't jumped off the screen at me yet as being elite. And maybe that'll change if they can get a big W at South Carolina.
I agreed with you until Saturday. And the way they manhandled LSU in the second half, let me tell you something. LSU's team was so much better than Arkansas's team, physically, athletically, size-wise. They were just playing a different ball game than we were. And then for A&M to go in and manhandle them like they did in the second half, A&M must be pretty good too. Now, what A&M's got to watch out for is the letdown that comes after beating a team like LSU.
Yeah, and A&M's got players. There's no question about it. But I don't think you really felt like A&M manhandled Arkansas when they played.
No, they didn't.
So, and I think, too, LSU, let's be honest, LSU has had players like this for 150 years.
Yeah.
And have never won squat. They've got a couple national championships in the last 25 years. They've got NFL players all over that field. And they end up being in the conversation of, are they going to make it or are they not going to make it? I mean, they're in that conversation now.
Yeah, and A&M did throw them a loop by putting in a backup quarterback. They put the little freshman quarterback, the running quarterback in.
From Nashville.
LSU had no clue what to do with him. No clue.
LSU's got 2 losses, and they've got Alabama, Florida, and Oklahoma left. And so Alabama and Florida, those are who they are.
Yeah.
Vanderbilt, they got Vanderbilt on there. Vanderbilt, I mean, LSU's got a tough schedule here going out. They should have better players than most everybody on this schedule, but
obviously I'll be watching.
Show us it doesn't matter.
Obviously, I'll be watching Ole Miss and Arkansas at 11. I like that game at 11 at home. I think it's a tough game for the road team, that 11 o'clock game for some reason. So I like the chance it gives us to win. I don't think Ole Miss is not that mental game that some of these other teams are. Now we could get throttled. You know, if the wrong defense shows up, we'll get throttled. But we go into it thinking we have a chance to win, and I think we will.
Now think about this: every year the schedule comes out, and Ole Miss and Arkansas have been in the same division in the league, so they play every year.
Yeah.
Ole Miss was picked really high this year. Arkansas was picked really low. When you looked at the schedule as an Arkansas fan, you kind of think that's a game we can win.
I think we always think that's a game.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Every year you look at it, you think that's a game you can win. And so I think it tells you a lot about what you're just saying is Ole Miss had a lot of hype this year with their $10 million payroll. And they're going to win their share of games. But Ole Miss has got at Arkansas, Georgia, at Florida, Mississippi State. I mean, that's a tough schedule. I mean, they're a slight favorite at Arkansas. They'll be an underdog against Georgia, maybe a slight favorite at Florida, depending on how they play in the next couple weeks. Then Mississippi State, the Egg Bowl, which that could go either way.
Yeah.
Although Mississippi State's not looking like they're beating
Mississippi
anybody.
State is really bad. Yeah. I mean, it looked like we were practicing. Because I think every one of our running backs and the quarterback were averaging over 9 yards a carry.
I think Pittman was trying to prove a little something because he kind of blew that Mississippi State game last year.
Without a doubt.
In Fayetteville. And I think he was kind of had something to prove. And so I'm not shocked that they put it on him that bad.
Well, I'm also going to have my eye on A&M in South Carolina because I think that's a trap game for A&M. A&M coming off that big win against LSU goes down to South Carolina, long trip like you said, and then it's going to be at night, and that in that stadium at night is not a lot of fun. It's not a lot of fun, and they have been known, like I say, to rear up on people. A&M should win it, but if they don't win it, I won't be shocked.
Well, put it this way: A&M's a 2.5-point favorite. That's all.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this week. Week 10 college football coming up, starting, well, I guess it starts probably Thursday night. Catch the games.
There's a game on every night.
Every night. It's the most wonderful time of the year. The only thing that make it better is when we turn the clock back Sunday night, or Saturday night. Don't forget about that. You'll be an hour early to church. All right, for B Ray, CV McCoy, this is Razorback Dave saying thank you for joining us on Speaking Sports. We'll see you next week.